Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Lineage Break, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. I am your host, Cam, and with me, as always, is Steve.
How's it going?
We are happy to announce that today's episode is also brought to you by Perfect Fit TCG, which is your one-stop shop for all of your Grand Archive singles needs, whether that be first edition singles or pre-orders for the upcoming Alter Edition, which is just a week away. If you guys want to make an order with Perfect Fit TCG, you can use our code LB5 to get 5% off at checkout, and that gives a little kickback to us here at Lineage Break as well. So thank you to Perfect Fit TCG for sponsoring this episode. We're going to roll out of the way. It is Friday. We're back. So many weeks in a row. They're all blurring together now.
I know. It's wild that we are consistent.
I know, right? Imagine. Getting out of bed's always the hardest part, you know? We're always like, and it's my fault too, but we're always, like 5 minutes later progressively each week until, we'll get to the point where I just don't show up to work at all. And, But today we are exactly T-minus 7 days from the launch of Dawn of Ashes Alter Edition.
It is wild. It's been a crazy ride since January.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of meta up and downs. We've had, some interesting topics we've talked on the podcast, and now we're a week away from actual launch.
Right around the corner. We'll be doing local events here at the shop very soon. Unfortunately, I think we mentioned last week we're not going to be here next week, so we will have a week off. You guys will, I'm sure, miss us very dearly. We'll be back on May the 5th, I guess, is when we're recording. I guess that doesn't matter to you guys, but... and I think that same day we're probably doing our first big Grand Archive thing at the store.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
We're doing a structure deck tournament.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to get people in. Yeah. Sell some structures. Get I think they're a great starting point too, especially Lorraine and Rye. I haven't actually really looked at the Sylvie list to see.
I haven't either.
How good of a spot it is. It's Sylvie's also got some challenges currently, but I'm going to be playing the Sylvie list. Right. Yeah, I think I might too, actually, to be fair, just because, you don't want to, dream crush the new people or whatever.
We've been playing Lorraine and Rye and stuff for months, and I feel like we personally shouldn't profit from it.
Yeah, I think we should just sleeve up some good old idiot Sylvie.
and
just smack people with flute.
At the end of the day, we might still just win.
I don't know. We'll see. We got some real gamers in
that is true. That is true. I'm just tooting my own horn a little bit too hard.
Yeah, you're gonna win every tournament. I believe in you, Steve.
Hey, I love Sylvie, and I'm very excited for today's topics.
True. So last week we talked about Ascent and all of that cool announcements. Throughout the month, they are putting out a bunch of announcements for Grand Archive, and I think we touched on that a little bit last week, but this week I think is probably the most exciting of the bunch. We've gotten our first look at what Fractured Crown is going to look like, our second set, which is kind of crazy, seeing as, Alter's not even out yet, but, we're already looking forward to the next one. It's, it's like half a dozen one, six the other, right? You don't necessarily want to do the... you don't want to spoil things too early. That's what's doomed Magic in recent years. But it's also worth considering that people like us, and especially people that have been following the game since the beginning, have been with these Dawn of Ashes cards for 9 months now or something. So So we're all very excited for spoilers, and that is what we're going to talk about today. And then next week, they were initially going to be talking about. Store championships and regionals. That actually got pushed back till the middle of May. And I believe next week we're getting the tournament policy stuff, which is good, seeing as we're going to be running stuff that following week. Yep. So we'll talk about all that next week or week after next when we record. But today we have all sorts of exciting stuff. We have a bunch of spoilers that they put out in the Fractured Crown design notes. They talked a little bit about where they are design-wise and what their goals are for the set, which I think is really cool. I've never actually seen any other card game be so transparent about their design goals and why they're designing cards, because they always just put cards out into the oblivion, and they want to I think everybody wants to be sort of insulated, where when you make a Oko Thief of Crowns level mistake, you certainly don't want to have put out an article previously that said why you designed that card, you know?
Right.
So, big kudos to Weebs of the Shore for being super transparent with the community. I think it's super cool that they're telling us, this is why we did, this and, stuff like that. So, so we're going to go down the list with you. We're going to talk about some stuff. All these new cards are very exciting. Worth noting, as we talk about this, obviously we're looking at this with a lens of having played Dawn of Ashes for the last few months. And a lot of these cards are super impactful to how our meta is currently shaped. I think that is probably part of the reason why they're showing us these cards specifically. But, also worth noting that this is, it's like 10 out of the 90 unique cards coming in Fractured Crowns. So a small piece of what we're going to be looking like in August. But so at the top of the list, we have a few cards that they had a little paragraph about wanting to put more like generic answers into the game. Because there's like a problem with some strategies right now where like if you're looking to combat a certain strategy and you want to like put cards into your sideboard, there's not a whole lot of like specific answers, sort of like silver bullets that you would sideboard in for certain matchups. A lot of the stuff in Dawn of Ashes is very like blanket applicable. There's not a whole lot of like targeted stuff. So they've given us a few of these more targeted cards. The first of which is Song of Frost, which is a 2 reserve cost water card. It is an action Tamer skill melody. It has class bonus, so for Tamer, that you may banish a card with floating memory from your graveyard rather than paying this card's reserve cost, so similar to stuff like Sudden Snow and Frostworn Paladin, stuff like that cares about water's sort of floating memory sub-theme. And it says, if a unit is attacking, end the combat phase, and this is a fast spell, so obviously, when we look at this card in the context of current meta, it's extremely powerful against all of these Ascension Lorraine decks running around. Like, a lot of us have been, playing, like, Zephyr to, flicker their swords so that they don't get all of these, crazy on-hits with Spirit Blade Infusion. And this card just, like, shuts that down 100%.
Yeah. Oh, you're attacking me with +9?
Right.
No, you're not.
+9 on hit, draw 3. No, you're not. Oh, you're level 2 Lorraine. You're going to cleave my board. No, you're not. It's super, super powerful. I think, and Steve, I'm not sure if you agree as we go down the list. I think that the cards that they've showed to us are all like super powerful control tools. I think all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today makes like, I think control look really scary, which I'm happy about. Enjoy playing
as someone who enjoys stacks and control myself, I'm very excited for this entire list.
Yeah, they're all super super powerful control tools, and I know I think it was Silidar, one of the developers, was talking in the Discord last week, sort of anecdotally or whatever, but how when they designed Dawn of Ashes, they tried to make control not as powerful as it could be, because that's sort of a feels bad for a new experience, right? Like control and stopping people from doing their thing.
Yeah, I think the quote
is generally
was,
a feels bad.
Stopping people from playing the game.
Right. Yeah, it's like usually not something that you want to start your game with. So you want like more aggressive strategies to be more prevalent. But I think maybe now that we're going into our second set, we're getting a little bit more of that control flavor.
Right.
All right.
I think that leads us into the next card, which is Scavenging Raccoon, reserve cost of 2. It's an ally Tamer Animal Beast, so another Sylvie card.
Mm-hmm.
On enter, banish up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. So, I mean, this card seems like pretty good combating any of the fire Erupting Rhapsody decks.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's probably a good spot for a sideboard card. Specifically for Sylvie, who doesn't really have a lot of graveyard interactions.
Yeah, she doesn't have a whole lot of interaction at all, really. Like a lot of her cards, at least, in the current pool, are like creature based, because obviously she's a creature deck. But this is this gives you, it's a 2-mana 1/1. It's normal, so like you can play it everywhere. It it has a body attached. It gives you your animal keyword, which is important for like Sylvie level 2.
Yep.
But yeah, it has some like incidental graveyard shenanigans. There's not a whole lot in Dawn right now that is like super heavily relying on the graveyard. Like Steve said, we have Erupting Rhapsody, which just cares about like the dearth of fire cards. So like obviously this is good in that example. And then of course, you know, we're going to be mentioning a lot of Boogeyman Ascension Lorraine, banishing their Ascensions so that they can't get them back with Cruxite is pretty powerful. Yep. But it's not so far has the game, I think, been like a super graveyard synergy heavy game. And I'm curious if that's going to change. Maybe this is, you know, more so a response to things to come.
I think so. I mean, further on down the list, we'll get into something else, but I think this is a good card just in general to have in the game because it doesn't limit the interaction you can have when you do release a graveyard combo deck.
Yeah, it's pretty muted. It's not like Nullifying Lantern is like a much more blanket approach. It's very specific for cards that like care about types in their graveyard.
Right.
But this one's a little bit more tempered. So I think incidental is probably better when you're printing this sort of effect. You don't want to like shut people's strategies out completely.
Right.
So after our favorite Scavenging Raccoon, we have Verrucken Acolyte. Maybe that's how you say that. Verruck, the big, you know.
The castle?
Yeah, the Nazi zombies map from Call of Duty.
That's cursed.
She is a 3 reserve cost fire ally. She's an 0/1. And she is mage human, so she is mage, which doesn't matter because she doesn't have class bonus, at least currently, and she's human, which might matter if you're playing, you know, human tribal synergies. And on enter, she destroys target regalia with memory cost 0. I think this is largely to deal with Nullifying Lantern.
I was going to say, this card just says destroy Nullifying Lantern
and
then win the game.
It's okay against, you know, like people putting smaller stuff into play too. I mean, stuff like Sword of Seeking and like Nullifying Lantern and like any of these sort of like incidental stuff, right. Like blowing up Sylvie's like Beast Bond ears or whatever is like pretty debilitating. Yeah. And then Acolyte here has a level 3 ability that says she gets +3 power, so it gives her sort of some staying power in the late game. At least, you know, once you're level 3, she is.
It gives you a reason to play it after you've already dealt with the thing you put her in for.
Yeah, she feels like a combination of 2 like pretty marginal cards, being like Spurn to Ash, which usually these decks have just been playing exactly to blow up Nullifying Lantern, but like it feels kind of bad to just use an entire card to blow up a Nullifying Lantern, and also she just becomes a Blitz Mage at level 3, so
which is good.
You just mash these 2 like pretty marginal cards together, and I think she's going to be pretty good, especially for these like Fire Mage strategies.
Yeah, and the art is absolutely beautiful on this card.
Gorgeous, big step on me, mommy energy, and we love that. So yeah, those are the first 3 cards that they talked about that are sort of supposed to be like blanket sort of spot removal targeted sideboard cards, right? And I think they all do that very well.
Generic answers for simple things.
Yeah, and worth noting that none of those cards, aside from the Tamer one that has like a cost reduction ability, none of them have like a super debilitating class bonus where, you know, you can play all of these cards probably out of their class and be okay.
Right.
The only one that you miss is the free cost on the Tamer card, but I think that's it's a 2 cost anyways. Like that's not going to be a huge deal. Then another cool thing that they're doing is and man, Steve and I are excited.
This next section made me real happy when I was reading through it.
shout out to Lost Spirit. I think now we should play in Path of Silver to make sure that we get our Morgans now that Lost Spirit support.
Yep.
So they said that they're trying a little bit to temper the use of not only advanced elements being like super prevalent as they are now, but they're also trying to give some more support to the basic elements as well as normal as a thing to do. And I think the way that they're handling it so far is really good. And something that I think we've talked about, I feel like I talk about it a lot, that I really hope is true, and I think every time we see a card it seems more true, is that we're seeing a lot of Cleric cards. There's actually a surprising amount of Cleric cards on the list today.
Yeah. I was also kind of surprised that we're seeing so much and not Not a lot of the other one. We saw a lot of. There's a lot of tamer. There's a lot of cleric.
Right.
There's not a lot of anything else.
Yeah, and I think it's like actually 100% confirmed that we're not getting any of the new classes in this set. So I mean, we'll talk about it as we go through, but none of these cards have class bonus, so it's not like we're getting cleric class bonus cards, which would be pretty telling that we would have to get a cleric in the set. But anyways, all of the cleric stuff is sort of taxes adjacent. Taxes refers to a Magic the Gathering archetype that sort of imposes extra costs on your opponent's cards, stops them from doing things like drawing cards and searching their library and stuff. And I've really been hoping that that's what cleric's going to be, because I think the design space on like Lunette Frostbinder Priest is super cool. How she is like a creature that is easy to remove if you're playing poorly, but has like a pretty debilitating effect stapled onto her. So I think that stuff is really neat. So we will start with Tithe Proclamation, which is a cleric regalia item that has a memory cost of 1 and is normal element. So it says on enter, you draw a card, and it also says players can't draw more than 3 cards each turn unless it's their first turn of the game, which obviously would shut off you drawing 7 on your first turn. So I'm glad that we have that line of text. But this is a hate piece for heavy card draw decks, which is mostly only going to be, at least currently, is like Ascension Lorraine doing bouncing her Sword of Avarice repeatedly, as well as decks like Mage are really reliant on that sort of thing. Fire Mage relying on Creative Shock, Arcane Mage relying on stuff like Arcane Disposition.
Right.
All very tough because it counts to your draw step. So if you play, an Arcane Disposition, that you only draw 2 cards, just I think very strong, and it's on enter draw cards, so like the floor is very low.
Yeah, I think those are the 3 most powerful words in any card.
Draw
game.
a card.
Draw a card. Like if you put that on anything and then give it another effect, you're already in the right step, right?
Yeah, and I think the fact that this on enter draws a card for its controller means that it's like I said, the floor is pretty low. So I think a lot of decks are probably just going to be jamming this in the slot. If they're in a deck that has enough time, or like floating memory, again, going to be for the more controlling strategies. But.
Right. This is probably my favorite card on the list.
So cool.
It's a reserve cost of 3, normal type. It's called Dawn of Ashes. It is a unique domain cleric cataclysm. Upkeep. At the beginning of your recollections phase, reveal a card at random from your memory. If it is not normal element, sacrifice Dawn of Ashes. Non-norm element cards cost 1 more to activate. So this is just you're playing normal. You slam this out. Now everything your opponent's trying to do costs more.
Yeah, I think it's cool that they're incentivizing people to play more normal cards in their deck. Obviously, I think it is unlikely, as much as I would like it to be true, that people are going to be playing like mono normal decks, but especially the way that this is worded, where you can sort of mitigate the risk of it blowing up. You just make sure that you don't put any non-normal element cards into your memory when you're trying to keep this around. And then it basically has the failsafe built in that if you do need to cast your own element cards, you can more or less decide when it goes away by just like putting element cards into your memory. Again, this is a cleric card, and it has that sort of taxes feel to it, which I think is really cool. This is very reminiscent of like Thorn of Amethyst, which is obviously a magic card. I'm super into this sort of strategy. I hope that like this is it's unique, so like you're not going to have a million of these on the board, and it's not a tremendously debilitating effect. I think it is pretty annoying against some of the strategies that want to cast multiple cards a turn. Again, we talk about Mage and Lorraine a lot in that sort of ways that people want to storm off, as it were, and play a bunch of cards from their hand. The Assassin Regalia was doing this already. That is choking
fumes.
That gives you this sort of effect for a turn, and that has been, I think fairly popular, just to like pop in somebody's recollection phase and make their turn hard. But this just sticks around forever, which is super, super cool. So I hope we see more effects like this, but it seems like that is sort of going to be Cleric's shtick, and we are very excited about that. Our next card on the list is Innervate Agility. It is a 2-cost wind mage spell reaction. It says, as an additional cost to activate this card, you de-level your champion and recover 5. De-level is a new mechanic that we're getting in Fractured Crown. It says, to de-level your champion, you return the top card of its lineage to your material deck. It is worth noting that this A, does not wake up your champion, B, does not get you enter effects again, so you can't de-level your level 3 Lorraine to get your on-enter +2. It does not get any of the benefits that leveling your champion does. And it says, units you control gain your choice of stealth or spell shroud until end of turn. This is a fast spell. So, again, some incidental protection, stuff like Shrouded Mists we've talked about being very strong. Spell Shroud, I think, comes up a little bit less just because a lot of the more powerful spells in the game don't target currently. But nonetheless, this is a very cheap and effective way to sort of, give yourself a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
It does de-level your champion, which it seems like a pretty real cost. You do get the like flip side of that coin, where obviously when you de-level your champion, you don't get the benefits of doing that, but you will get the benefits of re-leveling your champion.
So if you're playing like Spirit Ruler,
yeah, if you want to like do your level 3 twice,
re-wheel and stuff.
Yeah, this is I think currently only super powerful with Lorraine and like Sylvie Earthstone is the only 2 cards that you really would want to repeat your level 3 on enter ability. We'll see if that changes. We do have spoilers, one champion to talk about later, but we'll see. I don't know if there's going to be any more champions in the set, but cool card. It's got Tristan on the art. We love Tristan.
I love Tristan.
Hopefully,
I love her so much.
Hopefully she sees some more play. So moving on to our third section. This is I think the only this is the only section where I have sort of mixed feelings about the messaging. Again, we think it's important that we're honest. We don't just want to be yes men, even though we love this game a whole lot. So this next section, they talk a little bit about the pitfalls of having no maximum hand size and having very large both memory and hand size. And they say that they are printing some cards that incentivize you to have lower hand size than your opponent, which I think is fine. I don't think that is an issue at all. I do think that one of my favorite parts about the game is the no maximum hand size, because it does give you that sort of dearth of options. Like and they mention a little bit here in the article about like they're worried about players getting sort of decision paralysis because they have so many options in their hand.
Right. But honestly, I think cards like this are beneficial because if you're falling behind in a game and your opponent has 15 cards in their hand and you have like 5, drawing a card that benefits you for having such a deficit feels good. Yeah,
I think catch-up mechanics are fine. I'm hopeful that is what it is, and it just it sort of benefits you for playing decks that are like sort of 1-for-1s, right? Because traditionally, always in games like Magic or Hearthstone, where Grand Archive feels very similar to these games in a lot of ways. Card advantage is so important, where usually, like, regardless of the cards in your opponent's hand, whoever has more cards is winning the game. And that is also how the game feels currently, when you talk about decks like Ascension Lorraine that are looking to just, like, draw 6 or 8 cards, and they're not going to kill you that turn. They're just going to bury you in card advantage. I think it's good to have catch-up mechanics, and I think that these two, one more than others, are good at doing that. I just... personally, I think that the sort of decision paralysis thing is something that I hope remains in the game. I hope they don't move away from these sort of like large hands, very big skill tree decks. I think it should just be more of a playstyle choice. Again, I don't think that they're doing any dooming and glooming here, but as, again, somebody who likes to play these, slow control decks that sort of build advantage over turns, I'm hoping that they don't, do away with that. But so the first of the two cards that we're going to talk about is also a cleric card. Very exciting. It is a 2 reserve cost normal cleric spell called Fast Cure, and it says if target opponent's influence is greater than yours, recover 4. So influence is a new keyword that we're getting in Fractured Crown. Influence refers to the total of cards in your hand and memory, so sort of a count of your total resources. So if you have less influence than your opponent, you recover 4. Recover 4 is, I think, fine. I think this sort of fits in a similar spot as Deflecting Edge as far as like value goes.
Right.
And this is a little bit better, obviously, because it's pseudo preventing 4 damage rather than 3. It doesn't stop any sort of on-hit effects, but and this card also has floating memory, which I think again is also sort of a strange spot for this card design, where floating memory you usually want earlier in the game rather than later.
Right.
But this card sort of wants you to play it later when you have less resources than your opponent. It all depends on your deck build. I know that there's a lot of if you're playing this in like a water shell that has these extra cards that
I was just
use your extra floating memory, like Frostborn Paladin and this new
I was going to bring that
Song
up.
of Frost.
Like most of the cleric stuff that we've seen so far, Frost Paladin and whatnot, they require you to have the additional float later in the game, where like I feel like a lot of the designed cards currently you don't really see in the late game, or you're not really playing in the late game. So it's good to see a late game card with float that has a spot for the late game.
I think it's a powerful card. I mean, I think you'll see it a lot. These sort of generic cards that are cheap, always castable, and have floating memory, I find are super powerful.
Yeah.
You think about stuff like, Favorable Winds in Wind is like not always a good card, but at the very least, you can like cast it to cycle it out of your hand and then use it for floating memory.
Right.
And Fast Cure is the same, is that like at the very worst, you just make sure that, you cast this card and this is the card that you lose, to your level or to whatever, you're materializing. So I think that it will see play, especially, in the time when we're playing like veteran soldiers and stuff that is like pretty low value that has floating memory. I think, just more cards, especially more generic cards with floating memory is good. And this, again, does not have class bonus, so like you can play this everywhere. I think before we move on to our next card, all of these cleric cards are sort of like pointing us in a design space, which I think is very interesting. I don't know if you've noticed, but all of the cleric cards, literally all of them, I think literally all of them that we have seen so far, aside from, I guess there's a couple in Wind. Like I think Zephyr is a cleric card, but we're getting a lot of water cleric cards, and we'll talk about a couple more later today. But of course, like Lunette from Dawn of Ashes is the only unique cleric in the set, and she's in water. And we get, more water cleric cards today. It seems like they're sort of leaning us in that direction, and I'm curious because so far they've designed all of the classes to be able to play in all 3 basic elements, but I wonder if we get to a point like maybe in set 3 when we get our new classes where they're sort of pushed in one color rather than the others, where like maybe, when set 3 comes out, Ranger wants to be Wind and Cleric wants to be Water, and they sort of push them into a color. I'm not sure.
I could see that, because I mean we are only getting the last 3, right? And there's 3 elements,
right?
So it would make sense that they go like, oh, your Cleric is Water, your Ranger is Wind, your Guardian is Fire,
right?
Like I could see that,
because I think it is really hard, and I think they've done a great job so far. But it's hard to sort of not have there be a standout,
right?
And I think a couple of decks unfortunately do have a standout, but there are some, I think Lorraine and Xander are both like pretty
fluid,
where they can play in multiple colors. But like I think Mage, at least currently, is very much wants to be a fire deck, and I wonder if they're going to push Cleric into water, which is obviously what I want. So devs, if you're watching, I want to play Lunette in all of my decks. But all right, so moving on.
All right, so I reread this card a few times.
It's a cool one.
Just because of past mistakes I didn't want to make again. This is a 2 reserve cost assassin mage spell called Illuminate Secrets. It is Luxem. It is a assassin mage spell.
Yeah.
So you can play this in Xander.
There's also no class bonus.
There's no class bonus.
Perfect.
So it deals an amount of damage to target unit equal to its owner's influence minus your influence. So, and it's fast. So this is you draw this card, you're behind, deal a metric ton of damage to your opponent for having more resources than you.
Yeah, this card is like kind of a nuts SketchUp mechanic where like you think about, like if you're actually hellbent and you have no cards in hand and your opponent has like 10, 12,
right.
that you just like, if you just like draw a couple of these, your opponent just dies. It's like, oh, I'll 12 you, I guess. And
There's been so many times where we've been playing where I'm like, have you like almost dead on board and I just don't have the answer.
Yeah, don't have the extra.
And you were like, well, I'm just going to draw a million cards and then pass and kill you next turn.
Right.
If I just draw this, like...
it just kills people. Yeah. It's the biggest Doomblade that we have.
Yeah.
Like if you have to deal with some big Sylvie monster or whatever,
right.
you can just, be like, yeah, I'll 8 that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it seems pretty good.
Yeah, I think this card is probably one of my new favorites. I'm very excited to design with this later on in the year.
Yeah, we're getting in that point where there's like, it feels like Luxem more than anything has so many powerful cards that like, you just want so much of your deck to be Luxem that like you get to the point where it's like, how many Luxem cards can we legally get away with? It's like 40. Like
14.
Your deck is just like not functional.
14 is where I'm at right now, and
but it's like
it's rough sometimes.
Play some of these. Yeah.
Now I have to play
especially
this.
if we get more. I don't know. Yeah, I think this card's super strong.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in love with this card.
Yeah, and I think cards like that are like we said earlier.
Right,
As far as the catch-up mechanic goes, I think
this is where
strong.
this was more than Fast Cure, where I was like, this is a card that like I understand.
Gets you out of
doing.
a bad spot,
right?
For sure.
Like this makes it so you can actually stay in the game.
Yeah, and it's not going to end the game outright, right? Like if you're absolutely getting dumpstered, a single Illuminate Secrets isn't going to win you the game. But if it's like a really close game and your opponent's starting to pull away, it's a good way to close that gap back up. So. All right, on to our next section. We are finally getting basic element typed regalia, so that is cool to sort of give each of the elements their own sort of identity, especially in your regalia deck, where a lot of regalia decks right now, obviously it's the first set, we don't have a whole huge card pool, but a lot of regalia decks are playing a lot of the same cards, so it's good to get some more diversification, especially in element. And I think all of these cards are actually super powerful. So the first one, I think maybe the most powerful, is very, very good. So it is a 0 memory cost Tamer Bauble Regalia. It is Wind. It's called Effigy of Gaia, and it has class bonus for Tamer. Your champion gets +1 level as long as you control an animal or beast. So this becomes another copy of Beast Bonniers, which is one of the best cards in your Sylvie deck currently, because you just really need to get your pride number up. And you want to do it for free. You want to like take the turns off where you don't have the resources to level your champion to increase your level passively. And so it's good to get more 0 cost because we only have the one currently.
Right. This might, replace Flute.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Not the tap one.
Melodious Flute.
Flute.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably the weaker of the few that you're playing right now. And then it has this absurdly powerful ability that says whenever an opponent activates an attack with Cleave, animal and beast allies you control get +2 life until end of turn. That's a passive. You don't like break this. They get +2 life. That just happens every time your opponent cleaves. You just have Song of Nurturing on board all the time.
Yeah.
This card's insane.
This card, I saw this card and I was just like, oh, so Sylvie is playable now.
Right. Yeah,
the amount of times where I've put Sylvie into the design space just to have Cam go Hurricane Sweep, and I'm just like, I was doing so well. This card just makes it so you can just dump your hand and beasts and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, she's supposed to be the like quintessential board control deck, right? And she's been like pretty bad at doing it so far because her stuff is pretty easy to deal with a few exceptions. And until recently, even those few exceptions weren't like super threatening. Obviously now we have that new change to the pride mechanic, which helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, just like This, I think, means that if you have any of the health pump cards in your hand, like Song of Nurturing or Favorable Winds, having this card just gives you infinite safety. Because, like, before it was possible if you have, like, a Song of Nurturing or a Favorable Winds that maybe your opponent, when they're trying to cleave you, gets over that just barely, right? And you're just like, a little bit too short. And I think having this, like, as an insulator means that just, like, if you have a Favorable Winds in your hands, you're threatening +3 health against cleave, just makes it, I think, borderline impossible for animals to ever get cleaved, which is crazy powerful, I think. I'm curious if, again, like we said at the top of the show, this is a very small subsection of the cards. So, like, obviously this card looks very powerful in a vacuum and especially in the context of our current meta, but we don't know what the rest of the set looks like. Maybe, you know, there's actual board wipes that make it a little bit more, you know, easy to contain these large boards, but this does super shut down Lorraine's game plan into Tamer. And I think that they were pretty deliberate in the cards that they showed us today. A lot of them are really strong against the current best deck in our perceived format, which I think is good. I think you guys did a great job choosing the cards that you did to show us, because, you know, it shows that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, Boogeyman Lorraine's not always going to be, you know, top dog.
Right. Speaking of Boogeyman Lorraine,
cards to turn off Lorraine. Yeah.
The next card we have is a 1-cost Cleric Mage Wand Regalia item. It's a water element.
Yep.
Class bonus on enter, draw a card. Best text in any card game.
Terrific.
Banish Wand of Frost. Target unit gets -3 attack for the turn.
Yeah, I think this card is insane. I think it's, like, very, very good.
Yeah, this goes back to, like, what we were talking about. Like, this is an anti-cleave card.
Right.
This is just a anti-level 2 Lorraine card.
Right.
Like, this card is actually pretty insane. When I first read it, I was like, it's all right. But the more I sat here and stewed on it, the more I realized that this card is just going to stop Lorraine from doing what she does.
Yeah, I think the water control tools, the water, like, cleric control tools in particular, which, again, we'll get to some more of those later, seem insanely powerful. Where, like, I'm at the point now where, like, if we took exactly the cards that we have from Fractured Crown, I think I could, like, build a functional water control deck.
Yeah.
With no win con, I think, is the problem, is it currently does not have a way to win the game. But I feel like the control tools are so insane.
Well,
that,
I mean, like, the control win con most of the time is your opponent gets frustrated with you and stops playing the game.
I was you know, I was in the shower today, as you do, you know, thinking about Grand Archive. And I was like, what if we just, like, build water control and we just play, like, a play set of Avalons, and we, like, actually just, like, you know, gradually mill our opponent. You, like, don't, like, hyper mill your opponent. You just, like, incidentally mill them every time you play a water card. And it seems pretty good. I think a lot of these tools are so strong. Like, Wand of Frost replacing itself. There's so many times, like, obviously, like, the best thing that we're doing, you know, in Warrior right now is a recurring Drawn Blade, which is just a 1-cost draw card. Like, it's just a card that nets even. And then, like, obviously Lorraine brings it back, and it's a free card draw. But, like, this card nets even and gains you 3 life. Sometimes more. Because its units attacks until the end of the turn. So any of the sort of, like, wake up your champion or wake up, like, second wind, wake up an ally, they keep this. So, like, if they're ever on, you know, like, this big Voltron plan where they're trying to make one big threat and attack with it multiple times, this gains you more than 3 life. I don't know. I think this card's crazy. There's a couple more that we're going to talk about later that I think are also, like, like, secret busted.
As someone, every week I say this, every single week, I love all the water space.
I know, yeah,
me
just
too. So good. Like, and every time I see a new water card,
I just want to play water, man.
I just don't care about the other elements.
I know,
which is tough to say, but
I think
true.
I think, like, they're pushing me right now. I mean, again, we'll see the other 80 cards or whatever, but they're really pushing me towards playing Water Mage when FTC comes out, because obviously we won't be able to play Cleric. Rest in peace.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yes, it looks so cool.
There's so many cool, like, just cool mage stuff too for water. Like,
ooh, we get a really cool mage thing at the bottom of the show too. All right, so moving on from Wand of Frost, we have Verrucken. There's that word again. Verrucken Soul Knife, which is a 0-cost fire regalia. It is a Assassin Dagger, and it does have class bonus and element bonus, so you do want to be an assassin and a fire assassin, so no shenanigans. The first line of text has class bonus and element bonus. It says you may banish 3 fire element cards from your graveyard to activate this card from your material deck. So it gets that sort of out of activation thing that we have on Gaia's Blessing and on Tome of Sacred Lightning. We're good with card names up in here. So it allows you to recur this over and over and over again, and its second line of text makes that a little bit easier. It is on kill, return Varrock's Soul Knife to your material deck, and it's a 1/1 attacks for 1/1 durability Assassin Dagger. So it's really good at pinging down boards. We don't currently have a whole lot of X ones, which is unfortunate, but it is really good at killing X ones. You attack your 2/1, bounce it, to my material deck, banish 3 fire cards, get the sword back. And again, we don't have a great way to attack a whole lot of times other than 1,000 refractions.
1,000 reflections.
1,000 reflections.
Yeah.
It does combo really well with this card. You get to 2/2/2/2/2, and just wipe their whole board. It gives you a sort of cleave in Fire Tender, which is cool.
I was looking at this card and I was thinking exactly that. I'm just gonna play this card and get to level 3 and then just play 1,000 reflections a bunch and hope it is enough.
Yeah, it's super cool. I was hoping that it did not have Assassin class bonus, because I think this card would be so sick with Trisket. Unfortunately, it does not do the thing with Trisket, but that would be so cool if you could do the 1,000 reflections thing with Trisket having 3 power.
Yeah.
But maybe that would be a little too good. I get it, whatever. But yeah, very cool card. I think all 3 of those cards are super staple worthy. Very powerful cards. I think that the Wind card is an auto-include. I think it makes it really hard to not want to play Wind Sylvie, because that card is so powerful.
I feel like with a lot of the changes that are being made, that Wind Sylvie is definitely the space you want to be in for Fractured Crown.
Right.
Obviously, we've only seen 10 cards,
yeah.
So it's not 100%, but based off what we have for Dawn of Ashes and what we've seen here, Wind Sylvie seems real strong. It seems like your board is just never gonna die. It's gonna make your monkeys so big and just so unbelievable hard to deal with.
Yeah, and you get all of the wind tools as well that help your board survive and reclaim and it's
all
very
that stuff.
Very survivable for your board, which I think is good. Yeah, I think
unless obviously they in Fractured Crown they print a destroy all allies card.
Yeah, I think that they
damage,
might. It's looking a little bit like that, because her boards look really hard to shift right now.
I'm just thinking this, and then you Song of Nurturing, and you're unkillable.
Right? Yeah, it's +4
+4 to your butt. Yeah, okay.
How do you don't?
No.
Yeah, I think, and I think that harkens back to what we were saying about maybe things are getting pushed into a certain design space,
right?
Which I think is fine. I mean, that's going to happen over time. I think it's totally reasonable that, as the game gets larger, since we're going to theoretically stay in this 7-class design space, some mages or some tamers are going to be pushed in one direction, and it seems like, Sylvie is being pushed into wind, Rai is being pushed into fire. And then, the other 2 are a little bit more jack of all trades, but I think it's okay when they sort of, make one element the place to be, especially when they're, at least currently the weaker power level decks.
Right. And we also have to take into consideration that this might not always be the thing, because we're not always going to have a Sylvie tamer. We're going to get new tamers.
Yeah.
So
and they might not want to play these wind cards.
Right. So it might, down the line, you might, water tamer might be better than wind or something, so I think it's perfectly fine for what we currently have to be pushed into a certain design aspect.
Right. Yeah, it's hard with such a small card pool, right? You do have to do some amount of deliberate design, because you can't make everybody great over every element choice.
Correct.
Because the card pool is just not big enough, you can't be well, we want everyone to be viable in everything, so we're printing, the same amount of every class card into every element.
Right.
You just can't feasibly do that.
Correct.
So, speaking of Wind Tamer being good, we are getting a new card type called Phantasias, which are spells that are supposed to be indicative of spells that last longer. So they're spells that sort of stay on the board. They're very indicative of enchantment auras in Magic, if you guys play Magic, other sort of permanent-based stuff that you attach to a creature. And so we have a Wind Tamer Fantasia. It is a 2-cost in Wind. It is called Mark of Fervor. It has Ally Link that says this object enters the field linked to target ally. If the link is broken, sacrifice this object. So again, it works a lot like an aura. It is attached to a creature. If that creature dies or leaves the battlefield, this gets destroyed. And it says linked ally gets +1 power and +1 health and has vigor. This has been a very difficult thing for us in our tamer testing, that we are very good at stalling the board, especially when you have level 3 Sylvie Love by All that gives all of your guys intercept and +1 health. But the problem with that is intercept requires your dude to be untapped. So we would always get into these spots where we would stall the board with tamer, but we would never be able to attack because we needed to keep our board back to stall the board.
Correct.
And this single-handedly solves that issue, which is great.
Yeah.
You put this onto, a Tempest Silverback, and he becomes a 7/7 Vigor, and you just punch them in the head for 7, and then he untaps and he gets the block and intercept like you normally would. Super good. I think this is not like an inherently very powerful card. It's just like something that Sylvie really, really needed.
Right. And I mean, not only that, but you can just put it on anything. Just put it on the hawk.
Yeah.
And just be like, caca, true sight, untap.
To be fair, doesn't that hawk have vigor? I think it does have vigor.
Well,
but I get what you're saying.
But you don't need to put it on the Tempest Silverback for this card to be just good.
Yeah, and also worth noting that this is a tamer card, but it does not have class bonus.
Right.
So you can just put this on your I don't know, whatever. You can put it on your Aeson Protector or whatever. You just make a 4/5 intercept
Giant
idiot.
intercept,
He just, smacks people. You can put this on your, I don't know, Gildus, make her a 5/4. It's pretty good. I think this card will definitely see some play.
Yeah.
And after that, we have yet another new card type. And again, I'm not trying to it's easy for us to draw comparisons. Obviously, all card games sort of, generate from the same space.
Right.
We are getting fractals that are another permanent-based object. So there's something that stays on the board, and they generate you resources. They have a keyword called reservable, which means when you're playing reserve costs, which are the yellow cross cards from your hand, you can rest these cards to pay for one of that reserve cost.
Right.
So they're sort of mana rocks that stay on the board and generate you advantage over time. They are both cleric, and they did note that there's 3 of them. 2 of them are cleric, and they did note that most of these cards are going to be in water. So again, sort of leaning towards water being the control element and being a little bit slower and wanting to build a board. And one of these cards I've alluded to a couple times today, I think is so super powerful. So, Steve, you want to hit us with the first one?
Yeah, the first one is a 2-cost, water, obviously. Fantasia, Cleric Fractal. It has Hindered, which means it's going to enter rested. On enter, each player puts the top card of their deck into the graveyard, and then it has the reservable keyword, which Cam was just talking about. This card is great. This card is doing everything that water wants you to do.
Right.
It's milling you. It's putting stuff into your graveyard. And then also it is reducing the cost of your cards.
Yeah. I think right now, water doesn't have a whole lot of huge mana payoffs, and I'm hoping that that's something that we get in the future. Where the most that you're doing now, I guess, is if you have a bunch of these, you can cast Mind Freezes in your opponent's upkeep. But I think that free mana generation is obviously very strong. This does have a pretty marginal on-enter ability, but for water, it is good.
Yeah.
Most of our water decks that we've been playing currently are at least a third floating memory, so this has a 33% chance to pseudo draw you a card if it mills a floating memory. And then again, if somehow mill becomes any sort of real strategy, it does increment that against your opponent as well.
I mean, and this reservable is not unrealistic, because there's so many times where I need one more card in my hand to do something, and this just makes that perfect.
This also helps you a lot with balance math, which I think is really cool. That it does make your balance math a little bit easier. Because, come on, man, if the devs are watching this, I love you. But also, give me more balance cards. I think balance is such a cool mechanic.
It is very cool.
I always just want to be looking at my hand and having to do balance math because it's so sick. Some of the most fun that I've had playing Grand Archive is like when I just make some like not even that it's good. I just make some like obtuse play that happens to leave me with balance on a Gildis or a Lunette or something.
There's so many times we'll be playing and Cam would like start to move something. I'm like, Cam, you're balanced, and he's like, oh yeah. Or he'll be like, why don't you just kill it? I'm like, I can't. I can't kill that Gildis.
It's so sick. So the next one is I think an absurd card. So this is a 4-cost water Fantasia Cleric Fractal. It is called Protective Fractal. So it's 4 mana. It has reservable, so you can tap this to pay for a reserve cost, like we said. And then it has rest this, prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target champion this turn. I think this card's literally nuts. I don't know if I'm like overrating how good this card is, but the fact that it is it's a mana rock when you need it. So like when you need to cast your spells and you're trying to like either like double spell or control the board or something, this generates extra mana. And every turn that it doesn't, it is essentially gaining you 1 life.
Yeah.
And I think about a world where you have like 2 or 3 of these in play, and you just like have a deflecting edge every turn forever.
Seems pretty good.
It's like kind of insane.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of cards right now that destroy objects.
Right.
There's a few, but there's...
And I assume we'll get some more in this set because they're adding more.
Right. But like, just the thought of like them not doing that and then just having cards like this exist, it's just like, if you just play 3 of these and you're just like, okay,
right,
I'm going to either cast a card from my hand on your turn, hitting your hand, or I'm just going to not take 3.
Right, it's super crazy.
It's just really good.
It also now it turns Water Barrier into actually prevent all damage.
Right,
because you cast a Water Barrier and then you activate this Protective Fractal, and you're like, all right, it just does the thing. Like I actually just take 0 damage now. I think this card's nuts, like actually insane. I think this single-handedly makes like control in water like a viable strategy. That's always what the control decks have been missing, is like incremental value that you get over every turn. And now that we have some more permanents that do that, the longer that you have this card in play, the higher chance that you have of winning the game. So, and then our last one is a Mage Fractal. So this is not Cleric. It is also not water. So it is a normal 2-cost Fractal of Insight. Is Fantasia Mage Fractal. It says on enter, you may rest it. If you do, you glimpse to, and it is reservable. So it gives you on play. If you need it, you have a free glimpse to. If not, it's a mana rock. I don't know how super powerful this card is. I think it's a little bit better in the like slower mage decks, like Arcane Ride, that are looking to go long.
Fine.
Yeah.
I don't think this card is. It's not bad,
right,
by any chance, but it's not as strong as the other 2.
Right.
The other 2 seem way.
I think so.
Way better.
This also is normal, so it gets a little bit less powerful because you can play it in more places.
Right.
And again, it doesn't have class bonus, so like anybody can use this on enter free glimpse too. So I think it's possible that it sees some play, but it does seem like definitely the least powerful of the 3 of them. And then they have some more notes about how they're changing the ratios for Fractured Crown. They're going to be re-increasing the CR ratio back up to 1 in 15 boxes, which is what it was for first edition. Mm-hmm. These are also smaller boxes. They're 20 packs per box, so they're reducing the MSRP a little bit. And my favorite thing about all of these announcements is they are increasing the case quantity to 18 boxes. That's not really going to affect the drop rate at all. They're just increasing the physical amount of boxes that you get in the case, which I don't think is really an issue. But they have said for Fractured Crown and hopefully everything going forward, there will be a guaranteed CR in each case. And this is something that like Weishwarz does, where people will buy cases because there is a sort of guaranteed ratio of the high rarity cards you can get. But the nice thing about this is the problem that Weishwarz runs into with this exact same thing, where there's like a guaranteed ratio of things that you're going to get, is once people open that, high hit or whatever, they then like offload the rest of the boxes super cheap because they're considered dead boxes,
Right.
because they cannot pull the like super expensive card anymore, which I think is like A, really toxic, B, very hard for players to discern, who is trustworthy, who, is not going to sell them dead boxes or whatever. But thank you again to Weebs of the Shore for being, totally normal humans with, good ideas. Cases can still have more than one CR. So you will have the guaranteed one in the case, but that does not mean that the rest of those boxes cannot contain that, which means that there won't be a dead box problem. Booster boxes will always be live, and I think that that is absolutely fantastic. So super exciting. It means that I'm going to spend way more money. So you nailed it.
Good job,
Good
guys.
job. You've done it. And then before we get out of here, because I know we are definitely going a little bit long, we have just a few more cards to talk about. Before we do that, there's one other thing that I want to mention at the bottom of this article here that says, in addition to the CRs that, we just talked about them increasing the ratios, they're also adding a new rarity, which is like CR-esque chase rarity, but much more common. They said there's one in every like 3 boxes or so. And these are going to be 26 common and uncommon regalia from Dawn of Ashes in a like new, I assume, full art, like sort of foil treatment. Which is super cool. I assume we'll get all of the like staple stuff.
Ring and orb and
not ring and orb because those are
hey,
not common and uncommon, but
one could dream.
Get like drawn blades and
fair.
And beast bond ears and stuff or whatever.
I just want the shiny ring. It's just too much money.
The shiny ring. You want to spend whatever those are going for, $3,000 right now or something.
No, I'm all set, but
All right, so we just have a couple more cards to talk about. The first of which is our most exciting Tamer card.
This card, I read this card and then I reread this card and then I just lost my mind because this card is so good. It's so cool. I love it so much, and it's a dragon.
The card's insane, I think.
So it is a 5-cost Terra unique ally Tamer Beast Dragon. It's called Crawl the Stone Scale Tyrant. As an additional cost to this card, you banish 2 preserved cards from your material deck. For those of you who don't know, preserved is a mechanic that most Terra cards have that after you cast it, instead of going into your graveyard, you put it into the material deck, such as Terracite.
Yeah, I think all of the Terra cards, like Meadow Bloom Dryad has it as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's all, but a good amount of them do. But on top of that, this is a 6/8.
It's so big.
It has Intercept, Spell Shroud, True Sight, and Vigor. And then it has class bonus on attack. Reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. Put them into your material deck preserved.
Yeah, so it draws you 2 cards, essentially, on attack. It has every relevant keyword that matters.
Yep.
It is a beast without pride.
Yep. And it's 6/8.
It's a 6/8. It's huge.
It only costs 5.
I think this card is actually nuts. I think it is what Sylvie needed.
Yeah.
She definitely needs a way to finish the game.
Right.
And this card definitively finishes the game.
Yeah.
It's not unkillable. It is, you do have to kill it with combat damage because it does have Spell Shroud.
Yeah.
There's a few things that get around that, but for the most part, the things that are going to be like single target answers for this do target, and you cannot play them.
So
the best you get is like,
But you're talking about all this stuff, right? And you got to kill it with combat damage.
Right.
We just talked about how unkillable
Right.
Wind is. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck killing
so
a
big.
6/12 or 6/13.
Yeah.
Good luck.
And you get there, you like trade your whole board into it or whatever,
Right.
and then your opponent's like, yeah, I'll reclaim it, and they just play it next turn. It's like, what are we doing?
This card is great.
So huge.
This card single-handedly is making me excited for Fractured Crown.
Yeah,
I love all the cleric stuff, don't get me wrong, but I have been trying to make Sylvie work for so long. I mean, you guys see me in the Discord sometimes posting weird Sylvie lists like the slime one, but like this card just put me at a loss for words when I saw it the other day.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely insane. Like literally nuts. The one that we have after this is Lancelot, Goliath of Asa. We have talked about this a little bit, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on him. He is getting the The CR treatment, there's something that's worth noting, which I think is really cool, that Lancelot here is a guardian warrior human. So hopefully I hope that we get other existing class, non-existing class uniques. I think that would be really cool. And especially since he is signed, I assume that he is probably part of a cycle.
Right.
Though I guess maybe we're also getting more dragons if that's the case. I'm not sure. There are, I think on the product sheet it says there's 7 CRs in the list, and we've only seen three of them. We'll talk about the third one in just a minute.
The third one is so spicy.
So yeah, we have Lancelot. We talked about him a little bit. Just absolute huge beater. When all of his text is on, he's a 4-mana 5/5.
Yeah,
Just pretty big.
yeah,
He's good.
He's a good card. Yeah,
We've talked about him. Dwell
before.
on him. Yeah. But what we will dwell on is I think the biggest spoiler of the event, and of course this one I'll spend the editing time to put up on the screen, is we have a new champion. It is a level 3 Merlin Kingslayer. She is a Crux champion mage warrior human. She has Merlin Lineage, which means you do have to level her up from Merlin Memory Thief, the level 2 from Dawn of Ashes. And it says at the beginning of your recollection phase, put a level counter on Merlin. Then if there is an even amount of level counters on Merlin, you draw a card and Merlin's attacks get +2 until the end of the turn. And she has 28 health. And this is very obviously Lorraine from the art that you guys can see.
You are going to... This card is... nuts.
It is wild.
This card is
I
nuts.
really don't know how to feel about this. I don't think that it's obviously got very powerful text on it where
Right.
Every other turn you draw a card and get +2 power is nuts. It feels like it has some strange anti-synergy with Merlin level 2 who wants to stay on board for a super long time and generate these level counters. We don't currently have a whole lot of huge level payoffs other than the mage level payoffs in fire, like Erupting Rhapsody and Fireball. I'm hoping we get some more, high level efficiency payoffs for this card to sort of fit into that control shell.
Yeah.
So I think she feels like she probably wants to be more of a mage deck than she wants to be a warrior deck.
Right. Which that means I'm hoping that we get Crux mage cards.
Yeah, so we have a couple right now, which
okay.
None of them matter, obviously, because none of them have class bonus.
Right.
But a couple of the Crux cards are mage cards, so I guess that
Okay.
was our sort of foreshadowing that,
Right.
that this was going to happen. Super cool. I can't wait to hear what's going on with the story. We all sort of assume that Merlin is evil and she's memory wiped Lorraine and sort of,
Yeah.
assumed her identity, I guess. I don't know. She's called Kingslayer, so she did commit some sort of regicide.
Yeah.
Who knows? Super sick card. It comes in 2 different CSR variants, which is so cool. I really like the one with the looks like ice on the outside of the border, which is indicative of Merlin, who has a lot of ice
Mind
evocative
freeze
stuff
and all that stuff. Yeah.
So cool. I've obviously everybody is super excited to build with this card. We are obviously big fans of Merlin, who is our unofficial mascot of the show. So sick. So
Yeah,
so
this
very
card
excited.
is-
I was screaming at the top of my lungs when this got announced.
We have a private little chat thing going on, and
There's
he
lots
wouldn't.
just
He just wouldn't
typing.
stop. It was so early. He just kept on going off about it.
I'm so excited. I love Lorraine's design, so I'm glad that it's not only Merlin, but has cute warrior girl on it.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. I better open one, or I'm gonna be on the knife's edge.
Please, just
Do it for me.
sell it to Cam for $1,000. Just
Give me a good deal. All right. Financially, I can't take it. So that is all of our Fractured Crown spoilers. That's a lot. I feel like we've been rambling quite a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of info to cover, but of course, we want to give you guys a nice long show since we're going to be away, for a week. But yeah, super exciting stuff. I can't wait to start building with this stuff. It's unfortunate that it's so far away.
Yeah.
That I think we're gonna try to just focus on Dawn of Ashes, focus on building the community and getting people into the game.
In my spare time, though, I'm building this dragon deck.
Maybe
so
a little
fast.
bit. I don't know. I think they said I'm not sure. I think mid-June is when we're gonna start getting more spoilers. So it's gonna be a while. But we are super excited for Fractured Crown, and we hope that you guys are too. I think that is all that we have for the show. Of course, if you guys enjoyed the show, make sure to let us know and hit that ye old subscribe button. You can find us on the Discord. We'll leave our Discord names below. You can also follow us on Twitter at Lineage Break. Make sure to check out all of our friends that we leave in our comments below, who are also making great videos about Fractured Crown. I know that both Maindeck and Creative Shock have both posted videos like these where they talk about the entire list of the Fractured Crown cards, so be sure to check those out. Also, again, thank you to our sponsor, Perfect Fit TCG. If you guys are looking to pick up singles for Alter in anticipation of playing Merlin, make sure to do it on Perfect Fit TCG using our discount code, which is also in the description below. I think that's all the things. Did I miss anything, Steve?
I don't think you did. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Have a good night, guys.